Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to Money Matters. I'm Sarah Peterson, here with Dean Greenberg and Todd Glick of Greenberg Financial Group. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
How are you today?
We're good.
Fabulous.
Fabulous and good. All good things. Well, we have so much to talk about. We're going to dive right in. Todd is one of the newer members to your team, right? We've met him before.
He's not the new. He's been there a while now.
Yeah.
I mean, we love it. We talk about the team, but we have to talk about all the players, right?
Right.
And Todd, he knows his stuff. So with Todd, we can get into it, right?
Yes.
We get the nitty-gritty.
We're going to get into the nitty-gritty. So today we want to talk about shift in the tax and real estate codes, which is something I know very little about and you know a lot about. So we're going to get in this conversation. These are things that a lot of people don't know. We've talked about it before, Dean and I, how this conversation we're having is not something that most people get at home. You don't get this in school. This is something that people don't even know where to start with questions because they don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah. I mean, what we know is at the end of 2025, a tax law that Trump put into act in 2017, which was the Jobs and Tax Cut Act, that goes away at the end of 2025. So starting in 2026, it gets reverted back unless the new president who gets elected or the current one keeps it the same. It really depends on which party gets into office, right? And so that's what is really going to come down to it. At the end of the day, what's going to happen in 2026 is estate planning gets cut down potentially from 13 million, where it is currently for a couple, down to around 6.5. Okay, so anyone with assets net worth more than 6.5 million would have to pay the estate tax on top of it, which is around, I believe, 40%. Mm-hmm. And that's right off the top to the government.
And but there's talk about $1 million going down.
Well, yeah, it's even if they just revert it back to the
so
normal.
So that would be anyone whose net worth is more than $1 million?
If you try to transfer that to your next generation or your heirs, if it's more than $1 million, you have to pay 40. Your heirs will have to pay 40%.
I mean, in today's day and age, $1 million is like saying, $1. It's like
right, which is why when Trump did this, he increased the estate tax from 6.5 to 12.5. Now it's around 13 because of inflated adjusted numbers. But again, it's already in the code to revert back automatically in the start of 2026.
Start of 2026. So people who are even thinking about this have an opportunity between now and then.
Yes, and that's again what we talk about the team approach here at Greenberg Financial is we're obviously financial advisors. We're not estate planning attorneys, so we cannot give you recommendations or strategies what you should be doing in those fields. But what we can do is work with an estate planning attorney that has those strategies, has the expertise in that field, and coupled with our financial planning, see what's the most efficient route for you to take. And that's really what comes down to the estate planning side, because then there's another side of things called taxes. And that's just the day-to-day taxes. Because what we're talking about here is an across-the-board 2% increase on tax brackets when 2026 starts. It's already just built into the code. So again, what president gets elected in November will obviously have the decision on what's going to happen in this next term. These are things that you need to be thinking about now, because you can do things about them now until they're too late, right? And so those are the type of things that we want to talk about with people, because our financial planning tool actually is able to implement those strategies hypothetically and see if it will work, see if it's efficient, and we can play with what happens if tax brackets increase by 2%, what happens if the estate tax law gets decreased. Our financial planning software is able for us to put in those different variables and see how it would work out.
Which is incredible. We were just talking, before the show about AI and all these things that we can do that it's just projecting what our lives could be and how they are.
And it's just starting. All right? I mean, a lot of people say, well, can this market keep going? Can we still do this? The whole idea is I'm looking at AI right now as being the same thing that computers did back in the 90s. I'm not talking about the 80s and stuff, and the 70s when we had those big punch cards. I'm talking about the 80s when we started getting those personal computers. And then what was the next thing that happened? The iPhone. We all have everything that we want on our phones. You could operate almost anything you want from your phone.
Do you know my daughter writes papers for school on her phone?
Right.
She considers that to be a computer.
Right.
I think it's horrible. Yeah. I'm like, you're gonna hurt your eyes, you need to sit and type, there's something. I really feel like there's something about the connection between your brain and your fingertips that happens. We're rushing everything too much.
Well, there is something about that connection piece, and I think that's why robo-advisors kind of was a fad a couple years ago, and you don't hear much about them anymore, right? Because people do have that connection to human that they want with an advisor. Because what is this whole industry about at the end of the day? It's trust in relationships. So having that trust and knowing that the person across from the table is communicating to you in a way that you can understand it means a lot more to you than having a computer tell you what the most optimal outcome is. How does that make you feel like, yeah, that's what I need to be doing?
The computer doesn't know your kids' names necessarily, right, or what they're into, or their
your values, your vision.
They don't know who you are.
Yeah.
If you don't ask questions after a question, you never get deep enough. We talked about layers all the time. Mm-hmm. Okay, most people are surface. We go deeper. We want those roots in there so that we can grow a relationship together. But going back to what I was saying about the iPhone and the computer, AI is just starting. This is not a 1 or 2 or 3 year deal. Where are we going to be with AI in 10 years? And that's where the money's going to be made. The relationships to the AI of what's going on. But with that, I also want to give caution to everything out there that has AI attached. Doesn't mean you're going to make money. All right? Stay to the quality, good companies that have the money to keep going forward and keep innovating. All these little companies, let somebody buy them out. Let somebody else pick them up, because if you have 100 of them, 3 of them are going to be great. And at the end of the day, if you try to start making money off all these little companies, it's the greatest idea, where everybody calls you and tries to sell you something, you're going to maybe be lucky enough to win, but you're probably going to end up losing. Just like .com. Everything was .com. They all went up there for a while. And then what happened? A lot of them got beat up and got crushed. So be careful with the AI market right now.
Thank you for that. I didn't think that's where we were headed.
There's also a really cool AI tool in the financial planning software we use called SuperSolve. And so if we have a plan that doesn't work on surface value, it would actually change all kinds of different variables. Do we need to spend less? Do we need to get more aggressive? Do we need to do some strategies? It will basically create a simulation of what it thinks you should do. And for our advisors, it's really just a tool, right? So, okay, this is what it thinks it should do. Maybe that's not what we're actually going to do, but it gives us ideas. And instead of, because at the end of the day, you just have a human brain, right? You can only think about what you're thinking about, but with the tools of AI and coupled with the human brain, right? Having the emotional side coupled with the informational data side of things really brings everything into one beautiful picture.
And now you know I have young guys as part of my team.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm seeing the big picture here. We always run out of time. We are ready for our first commercial break. So I want to give you that phone number. It's 520-544-4909. And speaking of technology, we have a lovely QR code at the bottom of the screen. You can scan that. It'll take you right to Greenberg Money Matters. And you can fill out the form to get in here and get your financial plan that is going to tell you whether or not you're on the right path to the retirement of your dreams, or whether you need to make some changes. Now is the time when the sun is shining. Stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, talk more about all the changes in the financial industry and how we're going to help you prepare for them.
This is Money Matters with Dean Greenberg of the Greenberg Financial Group. I'm Spike Spangle. Dean, what really got you started in this industry?
It was because I was working for Ford Motor Company. I had ordered all the dealerships, and I kind of looked at things and I said, this is not what I want. So I went back and got my MBA in finance and investments and said, I'm going to work on Wall Street. I didn't really know the journey I was going to have until later on, 1987, when the market crashed.
Yeah. Black Monday.
Black Monday. The only person in the company of 600 and some odd brokers. I was buying IBM, and I opened a $500,000 account. So they say to me, hey, this is unbelievable. How did you do this? What did you do? I just said, because I thought it was the right thing to do. Down 20%, it was probably a good time to buy, and I was more of a technician and an advisor and an educator at that time. Long story short, they tell me a week later I never owned the stock. The back offices back then could not handle 1 billion shares a day. So a week and a half later, they tell me I don't own it, and I needed to call the client to tell them they didn't own the stock. And I told them that they should pay the client. Next day I came in, my box of stuff was in there, and they told me I was fired. And I went to go see the guy I knew to go get a job. And he said, Dean, I'd hire you tomorrow, but you need to start your own business. I laughed at him and said, how am I going to start my own business? I only have $5,000. He said, figure it out. We're all salesmen. You educate. You care about the markets. You care about your clients. So I guess I figured it out.
Hello and welcome back to Money Matters. I'm Sarah Peterson here with the dynamic duo, Dean Greenberg and Todd Glick of Greenberg Financial Group, and we are getting into it. I love how you guys have such a different take. It's so awesome to see this yin and yang, and this is what we need, this next generation that has a super interest in how technology plays a part in the financial
and the
world.
only way you're going to get it is if you get young, smart people with you. You know, and that's part of the team. You're building a team. I put the right players in place. That's what I keep telling everyone. I keep saying that to them, and I keep getting the feedback from the people that come in to do our financial plan. They're like, wow, I can't believe how great this is.
You know, I have always said I don't think you're ever too young to start planning, but I can also see how people will, approach you in a different way too. I'm sure that you can connect with younger people and help them to understand that what you do now can impact your financial future. It's really cool that we have all these tools in our toolbox. We just need to learn how to use them. So before break, we were talking about potential changes. We don't have a crystal ball, but we do know that there will be changes in the tax code.
Right.
That is the plan, at least.
Or no changes, we hope.
Exactly. So in the event of these changes, or, if not, we still need to make plans.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of tools at our disposal.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first couple. The one that comes to mind is something everyone likes to talk about, Roth conversions, right? When does it make sense is really what it comes down to, and that's why financial plan, we bring it back to, because this financial planning software has a tax planning tool where we can actually put in Roth conversions. Say we do $20,000 for the first year, or we do it for 5 years, and we can see how much we can project how much taxes you'll pay on a Roth conversion, how much taxes it will save you in lifetime taxes in terms of tax-free growth, or whether or not we're paying taxes at a smaller rate, right? Like I said before the break, if taxes brackets all increase across the board by 2%, well, then you're talking at least 2% savings right off the bat if you did a Roth conversion before they changed those tax brackets. So potentially there's one right there. But again, Roth conversions can just be a beneficial strategy without any tax changes in the horizon, and that's all can be seen with the financial plan, because the Monte Carlo simulation that we use takes 1,000 simulation of market returns, good and bad, and can see, does that tax-free growth actually lead to more tax savings than it does from just paying the taxes up front? And that's another thing about people don't, really consider with Roth conversions is when you do a Roth conversion and it gets added to your adjusted gross income, your taxable income, what does that affect? Medicare premiums. And then that light bulb goes off, oh, snap, I might be paying $300 more a month because I'm showing up more income on my bracket because it's a 2-year look back. That's how Medicare, works. So the minute they looked at 2 years and see that Roth conversion and your $120,000 all of a sudden went to $240, you're in a different Medicare bracket. Now you're paying more for those premiums. So how much did that tax savings really give you in terms of the extra cost on the Medicare on the other side? We can play those numbers and actually look at it. And so those are the couple things that, just because the Roth conversion sounds good on paper doesn't mean it always is, right? There's people that start RMDs and they're trying to do Roth conversions. How are you going to do it, right? You're showing too much income, there's not going to be savings. But if certain circumstances, and this is really the bread and butter for Roth conversions, I think, if you are in your 60s, you've retired, you're not showing a lot of income because you haven't started Social Security, right? You don't have any real other income coming in. That's where you have a lot of room to be able to do Roth conversions and get around those pesky RMDs, which people don't know about. They're called required minimum distributions, and they're coming for you. Most of us, it's around 75, but it can be 73 to 75. It's based on your age, but for most of us, it's going to happen at 75, right? And you have no choice. You're taking about 3 to 4% out each year. The IRS mandates it. So instead of paying taxes then, when you don't have a choice, it could be potentially beneficial for you to do it now.
It's so much of it's about timing. It's not how much you have, but it's where it is and when you utilize it. Mm-hmm. So this is why it's so important to have a professional.
I got a question, really
Question
a
for me?
statement. A lot of people can't do Roths. They make too much money. Okay, you make, what, $144,000 or something like that?
Single, yeah.
Yeah.
And the joint, it's about $220.
You make more than that, you can't do a Roth. However, there is a loophole. It's called the backdoor Roth, and we've been doing more and more of these. And the reason being is, if you believe like we do, there's a great chance the only way we're paying for a lot of this debt and everything else we got going on is because they're going to have to raise taxes. There's nothing better than to pay the taxes now on the money you have and do this backdoor Roth where you can start putting money in that every penny you earn for the rest of your life in there, when you take it out, you'll never have to pay taxes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the conventional idea of these things is, I'm going to put money into a traditional IRA, and then when I retire, I'm going to take it out at a lower tax bracket. But what people don't understand is inflation is when you're retiring, you're probably taking out just the amount the same. So like Dean said, doing that Roth is so beneficial because of the tax-free growth you get with it. And what he's talking about is for those higher income earners, you can still contribute to an IRA. A regular non-deductible IRA is actually what they call it, because once you get over a certain income threshold, you cannot actually deduct your IRA contribution from your taxes, which means it's not a pre-tax contribution, it's actually an after-tax contribution, but it still goes into the traditional IRA. If you do it in the same year, what we can do is do a backdoor Roth. IRS knows about it, they're completely cool with it as long as you follow all the rules. You're doing a Roth conversion, right? So you put in the limit of, I think this year it's around $7,000. You put $7,000 into a non-deductible IRA. It doesn't get deducted off your taxes, it's just sitting in there. And then you take that $7,000, put it into a Roth the same year, and then that grows tax-free for the rest of your life.
Wow.
So for the people that think that they're not eligible for Roths, no, you aren't eligible, but you can still do a backdoor Roth.
But again, it's just timing is a big part of this, right? So making sure you're in the right window.
Yeah. I think anyone below 50 should be taking full advantage of any Roth accounts they can.
Well, that doesn't matter. That's the thing. It's already after-tax dollars. So it's not going to affect your Medicare. It's not going to affect anything. If anything, it's going to bring it down once you have enough money in there. Because if you keep doing it, and you got 10 years, you're going to have a couple $100,000 in there.
Yeah.
That you're going to be able to earn money off of and never have to pay taxes.
Yeah, taking money out of your Roth IRA will never show up again on your taxable income.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
To me, people are so focused on tax, preparation. I mean, which is what we have to do, right? We have to talk to our accountant. We have to prepare our taxes. But a lot of people don't really know the first thing about tax planning.
Yeah, when you say preparation, I think, the better word is efficiency. Everyone wants to be as efficient as they can with tax. I think most people understand that there is a need for taxes, right? Society is built on some sort of taxes being paid. We have roads, we have things. People are okay with paying their fair share. What they aren't okay with is how that fair share is getting, spent. That's a different point. The point is...
And don't get me started on that.
I know. We can get as efficient as we can.
I want to get you started on that.
We don't have enough time. We have to be as efficient as we can be with the money that we've accumulated over our lifetime to work for us as best as we can, right? We have values and visions. Let's make sure that money works toward those values and visions most efficiently. That's all we're talking about. We're not talking about, trying to not pay taxes. You got to pay your taxes, right? What we're talking about is let's be as efficient as we can be. And that can only be done with a financial plan. It's not using Excel, it's not scratching it on the paper, it's taking 1,000 different simulations of something. And that's the only way you can truly understand risk.
Well, you know what? There are so many tools in our toolbox that our grandparents didn't have. Their retirement was so different. They had a pension, right? They had, they had two options, right? And this is what they did. And their life was a lot more simple. We are fortunate enough to have all these tools in our toolbox, but we need to have a financial professional in our corner that understands these things to help us utilize them in the correct way. And it's exciting that we have all these things, but I don't know what stops people from wanting to make that call. I think it's just an intimidation factor of I may or may not have enough. I don't know if I am worthy of a financial plan. You might tell me that I don't have enough to do the things I want to do, but when I listen to you, I understand the sooner the better. The earlier we can talk to you, the earlier we can start planning for you, the more options you will have to living that retirement that you've always dreamed of.
Families need it so much, especially who are starting to have kids and plan. There's so many other things that they can do because they're going to have college. They need life insurance. They need a whole bunch of different things than somebody that's 70, 75 years old that needs.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break because we always run out of time. I want to make sure we can get to all your viewer questions. That number is 520-544-4909. Give us a call and we can get you on the path to retirement. There is literally no risk. And I hope you'll stay with us because we're going to get to some of the nitty-gritty questions that you've answered.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Hello and welcome back to Money Matters. I'm Sarah Peterson here with Dean Greenberg and Todd Glick of Greenberg Financial Group. And we are just talking about all the tools in the toolbox to get us to where we need to be for financial planning for our retirement. We talked about Roth conversions. We talked about backdoor Roths. Is there anything else that we are missing out on that, is a newer tool?
It's not a newer tool. It's been around for a long time, but it's just called a qualified charitable distribution. For the people that are more charitably inclined, if they don't want to take the RMD to show up on their taxable income, they can simply donate their RMD to a charity. The charity doesn't have to pay taxes. You don't have to pay taxes. You don't get the money, but the charity gets it, and it makes you feel good, and it maybe doesn't impact your Medicare premiums if you're really close to the next bracket or something and you don't want to take on that extra income. You can do a qualified charitable distribution.
Let's talk about annuities too, because a lot of people talk about annuities on when it comes to saving on taxes. Annuities in the right situation are good, especially when you need to fill in your income gap. That's probably the most important thing. What gets me about annuities is when people are trying to talk about, because if you're afraid of the market, you won't lose any money. You won't make any money. All right? So especially in an IRA, putting an annuity in an IRA to not make anything more on the average than you can make in government bonds right now makes no sense to me. None. However, there are things called MIGAs that are basically like annuity that pays you and guaranteed by the insurance company, about 5.2, 5.5% right now. And the 5 years, 7 years or longer, those we don't have a problem with, because they will be tax deferred, especially outside there, and you don't have to pay taxes and grow. And then you can use it for your emergency money. You can always take out 10% if you need it. But the fixed index annuities, if you're taking money from the fixed income side, okay. But if you're taking it from your growth side because you're so afraid of the market, and you're not going to make anything, even though they try to tell you can make 4 or 6%, very rarely will you, because this, at the end, and the only thing I'm going to agree with, like Fisher Investments and those guys that talk so bad about annuities, is that if you don't read the fine print, you don't understand the annuity. And maybe 2% of people actually understand the fine print. Let's face it, when there's so many restrictions and the annuity companies can slide the interest rates up and down as interest rates go up and down, that is everything against the customer. That probably bothers me the most. But if you're getting into a fixed index annuity with the idea that you can make some money, but really for the guaranteed income, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever you need it for, then I'm all about that. And because they will give you that income stream that you need for the rest of your life, no matter if you run through all your principal or not, they will always give you that. And that's good. But when you're trying to get it because of protection, there's so many other ways you can protect and mitigate risk and get the upside when you can.
Do you think annuities have just gotten a bad reputation because people don't understand them?
Well, I think annuities got a bad reputation because they made it a bad reputation. A lot of them aren't, you got a lot of lower level annuities promising you all this stuff and can't fulfill it because it's not even an index. All right, they say we're matching the index, and you'll get 60% of the S&P 500. But then they can change that. As interest rates go up and down, they can move it from 60 to 40, or they can move it up. If interest rates go higher, you make more. If interest rates go lower, you do it. So if you think the market's going to go down, interest rates will probably go down, because then they have to lower interest rates because we're in a bad scenario. Then your annuity isn't doing what you expected it to do. Yes, you don't lose money. If that's the only thing you're looking at, buy government bonds. You don't have to pay state tax on it anyway. All right? That's better than a CD. There's other ways to do things than to be able to do that. Do a Roth. All right? I mean, there's other ways than just buying those. Do I think annuities are good in certain places? Absolutely. Do I think there's some good annuities out there? Yeah. Do I think the annuities are better today than they were? Yes. And there are people that come in and say, listen, I don't want anything to do with the market, but I want an annuity. We'll find the best annuity for them. That's how it works.
Well, I was going to ask you a viewer question, but let's just try to get to this one. I love this question because I feel like this is on a lot of people's mind. I'm exactly 5 years away from retirement and do not have a plan in place. Is it too late for me?
Absolutely not. I mean, that's probably the most people that walk in our door are probably around 5 years away from retirement. And the reason being is because, well, I mean, you don't want to really think about something until it's kind of close to it. If you think about retirement 15 years out, eventually you realize it's still 15 years out and you get kind of sad, right? So most people, they honestly start thinking about retirement 5 years out, and it's plenty of time to think about it, right? You still have a long runway of 401k contributions coming in the door. We can change those contribution percentages if we need to up them, whatever we need to do. But it actually is perfect because we can then lay out a strategy and make changes if we need to, instead of you coming 1 year in front before retirement.
The only reason somebody won't come to us or anybody else for a financial plan with 5 years ago, they're afraid to know the truth. They're afraid to know if they can retire or not. And to me, I say that's ridiculous. You might as well know where you're at beforehand. If that means you got to work 2 or 3 more years to get to the goals you want, fine. If that means you might not ever get there, then we have to come up with a plan on how you're going to retire and spend. You know, because the idea is if you're going to go into debt when you're retired, it's going to snowball and the stress level is going to be off the charts.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss, but if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So.
I 100%
Oh,
agree.
Todd.
He's so wise and so young. I just love it. I actually love that there is this, you have such a great grasp of this at such a young age, because I think that, you know, I'm trying to teach my children. I would like them to know from now, you know, they buy something, I want them to understand what taxes are. I want them to understand there's always implications to the money you earn and the money you spend.
Invite Todd for dinner. He'll teach your kids.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he eats that much, so I think I can afford it. You know
Well, he
what?
runs marathons.
I love it. Well, maybe he can teach them some discipline too. One thing that I think we get from you guys is there is a real family aspect to this business and a real team effort, and you really get to know your clients. It's so important. I know for me, I would really want to know that somebody had my best interest at heart when it comes to my finances, and no computer can really do that, right? So that's what
It's not only your best interest. We love that. We know what we're doing. My young guys know what they're doing. They read, they learn, they study, they ask questions. It's very important.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? That phone number has been at the bottom of the screen and I haven't addressed it. It is 520-544-4909. We also have a QR code at the bottom of the screen. You can scan that. It will take you to greenbergmoneymatters.com. It will help you get right on the road to figuring out if you are where you need to be. And what we're offering, other people charge thousands of dollars or more for, and you guys give this as a gift to the people who watch the show, for taking the time to educate yourself with us. So thank you for spending the time, and we hope that you'll join us on the next show. Enjoy your road to retirement. We'll see you soon.